Dave's going to be put.
Please.
Yeah.
Could I ask Chris to open it with a karakia, please?
Sure. Tēnā koutou katoa, ngā mihi mahana a kia koutou. Karakia tātou, tuia ki runga, tuia ki raro, tuia ki roto, tuia ki waho. Tuia tātou te tangata, ki te kaupapa o te hui nei, ki te kaupapa o te rangi nei, mauri ora kia tātou katoa. Bind above, bind below, bind within, bind beyond. Bind us the people to the purpose of our meeting, to the purpose of this day, and breathe life into all of us.
Thank you, Chris. I'd like to welcome today Kim Drummond, who is the Group Manager for Environmental Assurance. Oh, sorry, did I say Kim? Yeah, and then, yes, sorry. Confused, Mike Drummond, who is Group Manager for Finance, and Richard Hollier, Reserves and Financial Manager, as well as Grant Rayburn, who is the new Reserves Officer and Contracts. So welcome from Richmond. And so apologies. Do we have any apologies today? We have Celia Butler, who's on council business. Are there any other apologies apart from Dave going to be 15 minutes late?
Covered.
All covered? Okay. So we'll move straight into public forum. Oh, sorry.
Leave of absence stuff.
Oh, leave of absences. Yeah.
Sorry, so I will need to excuse myself at 11.
Okay.
And thank you, Grant, for stepping in.
Can I move that? Can we have a second, please?
Happy to second.
All in favour?
Right.
Right. So move to public forum. I'd like to welcome the public who have registered to who requested to speak to us today. There's a large, there are a number of ground rules, and I just want to point them out before we get into it, and that is your time is limited to 5 minutes. If you're disrespectful, use malicious or offensive language, or start to criticise elected members or staff, I will halt your presentation and you'll be asked to leave. You'll also be stopped from speaking if you have previously spoken on the issue or are repeating views presented by an earlier speaker in the forum. And something new, which I am going to tell you, this meeting is being recorded and will be made available to view through the council website. Okay, so if you're on Zoom, can you just stay muted, please, until you have time to speak? Thank you. So we have 5 minutes for each speaker now. Debbie has moved her time slot to next month, so we're going to start with Noel Gagent, please. Welcome, Noel.
Morena, tēnā koutou board members and councillor Chris. Have you all had a look at the grandstand lately? I was astonished to recently learn that after several highly qualified independent building assessors, 2 specialising in historic building restoration, who found the building structurally sound, yet 97% of the structural timber has been removed, and the whole building hardly recognisable apart from the roof and the seat. However, it is what it is. In our hands, we're tired, as we had to accept what council approved back in August 20. Sorry. Otherwise, we would not have a grandstand at all. So I'm not here to discuss that, but I just thought I'd give you a couple of examples. You have a look at the place, the stairs, original stairs, they're twice as wide as they used to be. It kind of looks crazy when you look at the grandstand. And due to the earthquake considerations, the restoration required the back 3 rows of seats in the grandstand were made unusable. So 10 days or so ago, I went to the project manager and I said, well, if 97% of the structural timber's been replaced, how about putting those seats back in again? Well, they haven't been taken out, they're just being unusable. And the response, and this is just the way that, you know, it's been constructed under new build. So the fact that we've replaced most of the timber doesn't impact the rating or equate to an increased seismic score. Moving to a new building standard, IL3, would allow those seats to be put back in, but it would trigger the requirement for sprinkler systems, altered fire rating system, access and egress, as well as a potable water supply on the top story. So that's kind of what's happened, and you know, it's not being restored, it's actually being rebuilt. Anyway, I accept all of that. Like I say, we wouldn't have had a grandstand, but I think what we need to consider today, the board has the option of considering who is going to pay for the extra funding. So we know that there's been an overrun. And on 19th of May, the council approved, subject to the Golden Bay Community Board's acceptance, that 195,000 for the grandstand be funded from the Golden Bay Reserve financial contribution, and the 300,000 from the car park be funded from the Golden Bay Board Reserve financial contributions fund. Now, this is different from what was recommended by the council report of the 19th of May, and that the 195,000 would come from the district facilities rate, and the 300,000 come from the Golden Bay Board Reserve fund. And I think that's fair. If both contributions were to come from Golden Bay, I understand that leave a balance of only about 15,000 Bay Reserve fund. And I feel that Golden Bay already contributes a significant amount of district rate. The one classic example being the Waimea Dam. And I'd ask the board today if you'd consider reverting to the original funding option that was put in council recommendation. I think it's just too much for Golden Bay to pay for both of those, leaving nothing much left in our reserve fund over here. It is a facility that is used by the whole district. But I say this in anticipation of the full council due on the 23rd of June would accept such a recommendation. And I want to be careful here that should this not be accepted, you know, we don't want to jeopardize the whole situation. That's my only concern. But I would like the board to really consider putting that recommendation as it was. You have that report in front of you, the 19th of May, the Defence Council. That's all I would ask. Thank you.
Thank you, Noel. Reg, you can come off mute now, Reg. You're on mute, so you might want to unmute yourself. We can't hear you.
Testing. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, we can hear you now. Thank you, Reg.
Great. Yeah, well, good morning, everybody. Look, I gather my three topics. One's already been addressed by Jess, telling me that the mobility parking is being addressed, but can you give me a date or time? This has been a request I put in a year ago for mobility parking in Collingwood. Okay. The second thing was the speed limits. Now I see Motueka has a 30k speed limit in the town. Fantastic. Great program. Here we are with a big program called Road Toll to Zero. Why can't we have that same speed limit in Taikako and Collingwood, 30k? It makes so much sense. Yeah, I guess that's my point for the day. This road toll thing is kind of interesting, and the speed limits with regard to the national program, which is reducing everything to zero. I gather all the speed limits throughout the country are being reduced, and there's a big advert on television telling us that they are dropping the speed limits everywhere. Why not us? That's it.
Thank you, Reg. I'm sure we can answer that question later. Paul.
Thanks. Good morning, all. if I won't sit down. I won't get up again. No, just three things, mainly maintenance on ideas that we hear through the weekly and through the board that is happening. First one's Taikako, the western arm, which I call the left arm, if you're looking out to sea from the boat club, was always for the public. That was the public side. Talk about a fence. Just want to say to you, remember that there is maintenance of that wall will continue probably forever. There will always be maintenance required for a rock wall that protects the harbour. It was put in to protect the harbour. The penguins have occupied it. They're the same as that they will occupy a house if it's next door. It doesn't matter where they want to nest, they will nest. No one has bothered them in the last 60 years that I know of. And all of a sudden we're going to fence off, or talking about fencing off part of that left-hand wing so that they have security in their lifestyle. We're going to be pulling it down every so often to get a 40-ton digger through to fix the wall, and it's the maintenance. So I don't care if you put a fence in, but whoever puts it in pays for the rehabilitation of that fence every time it's pulled down, not the ratepayers, because that was never designed, that wall, for locking us, the public, out. That was the public side, and people going down there fishing are not going to worry the penguins. That's first thing. Second one is down here at Waitaku Bridge. The bridge was designed in late 70s to take all the water, not some of it, all the water from the Taikako Valley. They were going to bank the whole Taikako River and take all the water through. The design of that bridge is 10 piles. We have 2 in the water. The bank up to it was supposed to be removed. Now, just take, for argument's sake, that area was taken right down to gravel. All the dirt is down the lower part of the river as a stop bank. And if you go down there when you're driving off the main road, if you look to your left, you'll see a stop bank. That's what was left of the dirt. The gravel was crushed and either put on the road or used in the stop bank further up. The original design was to take that whole southern corner off, where the old bridge is, and put a wall up the riverbank to stop the flooding going through via what we call what we call Waitaku Splash. NZTA, for some unknown reason, because that splash never got washed out in all the years up until the new bridge, because it was lower than the road, the same as, and another example of it at Mary Road. I made them dig out the build up at Mary Road some years ago, because that would have been the same maintenance cost every time it floods, that it lifts the tar seal off and wipes it away. And that's what happens at the Waitaku Splash. By putting a rock wall underneath the bridge, or not underneath the bridge, but on the south side of that car park, you are actually blocking the river. The river there in the old bridge is 78 meters across. That's it. It goes from 140 meters where the Kupu comes into the Taikako River down to 78 meters. We have a build-up of water there which pushes it over Waitaku Splash. It seems that one canoe one can't really work out why it floods at Waitaku Splash, and I just don't understand that. I would have thought by now they would have had enough sense in their system to be able to say, hey, if we stop the water from getting out of the river, then it won't flood. And if we lower the road back down to what its original height was, the river runs over it and doesn't wash the tar seal. However, it's a maintenance thing. We pay for it through our taxes, and it just seems ridiculous that you're now going to put a rock wall down to the edge of the sea, the edge of the river. You're also shifting the access to the river further south, and it puts it into the line of the old pile. So if you go down there today or tomorrow, the river might drop a bit more, you'll see when you back your car down in the dark, 4 o'clock in the morning, you'll be actually dropping over a bank, because that's what happens every time the river rises and falls. It takes the gravel away from there. The reason they had you drive to the right was that you could go and park on the smoother gravel and the leveler gravel down under the bridge. So just a thing. I know council's not paying. I'm hoping it'll be Canoe one that pays the bill all the time. But if it's not, and we're going to have council staff and parks and reserves fixing something that shouldn't be there, then I'd be really quite disappointed. The last thing I want to say is a year ago, we were asked for submissions on the ONLs and outstanding natural features and outstanding natural landscapes. And they put out a perspective and they told us we could submit. And people spend a lot of money submitting. To date, as a submitter, and as knowledge of 5 other submissions, there has been no recognition of them submissions. There has not even been a courtesy note to say that they've received them. And it's now rolled on a year. What I'm asking for is perhaps some correspondence back to me, so that I can get back to some of the submitters that I know to tell them what's actually happening. And we want to know, is it now null and void, those submissions, after a year? Do they just fall off the desk? And so the staff who spent hundreds of hours writing up all this rubbish to put out for us to submit on will go back and do it again next week or next year and have no results, and you don't care about it. I mean, I don't know how much money it costs the ratepayers to do that, but it's a significant amount, I tell you now, hundreds of thousands. And so I'm just finding it really difficult that we've had no reply, no response, not even as I said, an acknowledgement of our submissions, and we've heard nothing more. So if you could find that out and get back to me, please, that would be wonderful. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Paul. Appreciate that. And I'm sure we can answer some of these questions a little later on. I think that's it for public forum. Are there anyone else? Oh, Nigel, I realised. Oh, yes, I'm sorry, Nigel. I just, there was a blanket here, so I overstepped you. Sorry.
Good morning. Just a short update for your action list on the Papua coastal protection. Since I spoke last month and talked about my 100-page consent application, we've now worked through all the questions that have been raised by the resource consents team, and we're hoping to put forward our resubmission of all the additional information they want. What I'd like to acknowledge is that the Council Reserves Management team have been very helpful, and that we have been able to work together on our planting plan and our beach access plan, and that's looking positive, which is a step in the right direction. I'd also like to acknowledge that Councillor Butler has also been supportive, and that, as you recall, I have been asking the board to help the Papua Community Residents Association in working with the council to get a resolution on protection of our coast at Papua. So now that we're going to submit our further information and add to the weight of paper and bureaucracy in the process and procedures that are going on, all I'm asking now for the community board is to continue to support us so that we don't start playing table tennis of ping pong back and forwards. Here's a question, here's the answer, then another question, then another answer, and it goes on infinitum. So we're at the stage now that we will be putting forward all the questions that we think will give answers, and that hopefully with community board support, we can look forward to getting some coastal protection where it should be, and saving our properties at Papua. Thank you.
Thank you, Nigel. Right, just a reminder to stay on mute if you're on Zoom. Thank you very much, and that brings us to the end of public forum. And I'm sure we'll have some interesting insights into some of those questions a little later. And I'd just now like to move on. Are there any declarations of interest today? No?
Do I have all the Grandstand meetings so they're very?
Yeah, probably. Probably note it. Yeah. It's just good to know you can still probably participate as long as you just note it. Okay, and now can we have the confirmation of the minutes from the last meeting, please? The meeting of the 10th of May.
I have the note, they're correct.
Someone second that? All in favour?
I,
Carried. Thank you. Have you got any late items today?
we have no one.
No late items. Right. That moves us on to presentations, and we're running a wee bit ahead of schedule, but I'm sure we can start because I think we've got Tracy Osborne. Yeah, I saw you walk in. So would you be happy to start the presentation?
Certainly.
Thank you, Tracy.
One moment. I've tried to forward the map through the presentation, so I'm just going to get that up on the screen for
Right.
everybody. Thank you.
I've addressed the screen here, if that's all right, so hopefully you might want to turn around.
Right.
So just. Thank you very much for the opportunity to.
One moment. Sorry, Tracy. I'm
That's
just getting that up so that the people on Zoom can see it as well.
Thanks very much for the opportunity to come along. Just wanting to take the opportunity really to bring you up to speed with where we're at. What we think is a very exciting project for the Golden Bay community. Project is pest-free Untitled. So last year we consulted widely, a group called Untitled Restoration consulted widely with the community about their vision for restoring cultural and ecological values to the northwest of Golden Bay. And in particular, the community has been offered $3 million from Predator Free New Zealand Limited to do a predator eradication project in the northwest of Golden Bay. Predator Free, sorry, can you go back? Okay. Are you controlling that? Or? Yeah, okay, yeah, lovely, thanks. So Predator Free New Zealand Limited is the government's company that is set up in response to John Key's proposal to have an Apollo mission for New Zealand, being the mission of it being predator free by 2050.
Yeah.
Sorry, I realised that it may have.
What's happening here?
I think it's because I had this set up for a community meeting we had recently, and it was on automatic scroll.
Yeah.
Are you able to keep sort of going back for me? And
Yeah, I can. Yep.
go back one more.
That one there.
Yeah. Okay, so we went out and consulted widely about the concept. We and the majority of the community thought this was a great idea. There was some people had concerns about whether it was feasible, but generally this is a really important area. It's an iconic area of the Golden Bay. And so we commissioned experts to say, okay, how could it be done and is it feasible? We're now at that and taking on board the community's views and feedback. Okay, next slide. So now we're at that stage where we have a plan and we're going back out to the community and saying, we've listened to what you have to say, and here's our plan for, yes, it is feasible and how we will do it. But we have refined it down. All the experts sort of recommended to us that take off a biteable chunk, something you can achieve first, build on success. Go back, please. Thank you. Sorry about this. You're okay there, Jess?
Yeah, no, that's fine.
So we're concentrating on 4 key predator species: pigs, possums, stoats, and rats. Possum, stoats, and rats are the 3 species that Predator Free 2050 is all about. And we have a particular problem out there with pigs, so we're including those. And I'll go back again, please. And we've narrowed it down to the most important habitat, which is Untitled Fireworks Extravaganza. You'll see this map again later, but the yellow area is now the area that we're targeting for full eradication of those pests. And the blue area is the rest of the project area where we're still going to be doing quite a lot of suppression work. And so it is feasible. There's a huge amount of work and a huge amount of resources going into this nationwide. We're now one of 19 of these large landscape scale projects that Predator Free 2050 Limited is getting off the ground. They're putting a whole lot of effort and research and money into research and product development and how to do it in the lab, but they know that that's not enough. We need to also be getting out there at large scale and making it happen and learn by doing it at large scale. So they came to us and said, look, you've got a great place here. If it can't be done here, it can't be done anywhere. They need some runs on board. So and so this is an offer to the Golden Bay community, but we have to come up with a lot of the funding as well. So it's a challenge. It's the whole project is very challenging, very ambitious, quite expensive. This whole concept of eradicating is a totally different mindset to how we've done predator control in the country before, which has been cyclic suppression. Knock them down, they come back up, knock them down, keep on doing that. This eradication is totally eradicate every last individual and then defend your border from incursion. And you don't have to keep doing it because once it's done, but you still have to defend it. Okay, next one. Why? I'll just do this really quickly, but this is a fabulous area. We've already got, for example, back again, a little remnant colony of sooty shearwaters burrowing into the hills at Fossil Point. Back again, please. Being protected by Health Post Nature Trust. We've got a gannet colony out at the end being protected as much as possible by Paddy Galuli and the Farewell Spits Eco Tours. There's terrific wetlands on there with all of our, again please, sorry, all of our wetland, rare and endangered wetland species. But
It doesn't stay on it, does it?
sorry, I didn't take the time enough. But we know that the place is absolutely chock-a-block full of predators. Okay, you can let it go forward now. And so those things are just holding on. What we also know is that historically, Farewell Spit was full of nesting seabirds and shorebirds. It's now famous for its migratory shorebirds that arrive there to feed over the summer, but go somewhere else to breed. It used to be full of June nesting seabirds, and they've pretty much all gone. And they're gone because of the predators. They're gone because of those things. And it's not just the birds who can let it go.
Yeah.
Thanks. It's the whole ecosystem. It's very special ecosystems out there, incredibly productive ecosystems, which is why there's so many pests. Possums out there are just phenomenal. And all of these things get eaten or disturbed in some way by predators. So we want a haven for nesting birds and valuable ecosystems, but it's also an opportunity. I think this is, I mean, imagine it. Look at what Zealandia has done for Wellington. This is an incredible project that the whole community could feel so proud of. And I think it would be, you know, there's a lot of sort of social capital to be made from it. It's also, there's quite a lot of interest in, because it's already a nature reserve, it already has the highest classification of conservation in the country. It's except that it's full of predators. If we can get rid of those as well, there's a lot of interest in being able to bring things there that are really struggling elsewhere. Some of our critically endangered species, like the fairy tern, the black still. Back one more time. There's also potential. We'll be doing quite a lot of suppression work in the rest of the project area, including Taikako Forest. There's potential for quite a lot of recovery there. We're contributing to this overall mission for the whole country, and it's also quite significant and potential contributor to carbon sequestration. 25% of the country's, you can go forward. Sorry to do this to you, Jess.
No, you're good.
25% of the country's eelgrass beds occur in this area, and eelgrass has been shown overseas to be 25 times the rate of carbon sequestration than forests. So this, and Predator Free 2050 Limited are also doing quite a lot of research on how just restoring removing the predation and the grazing of our native vegetation increases its carbon sequestration. Go back one more. So I'm not going to, so that's why, you know, I want to kind of instill some really excitement in you, but I won't go too much today into how. But all of these little bright dots are devices. There's quite a well-established recipe, and it involves, you know, many stages, and it involves quite a lot of different technologies. Everything has to be done in the right order, but there's around about 5,000 devices to be installed and maintained, and it's a 4-year project. Who? Yeah, we'll let it go forward now. Who? So we're Tasman Environmental Trust and Mana Whenua Ki Mohua Partnership. Who? We've also got Project Mohua very much involved. Predator Free 2050 Limited have dangled a very attractive carrot in front of us. There's a lot of really good reasons for doing this, but there's 3 million reasons why we are doing it right at the moment. And so we're kind of now going out, reaching out to the community saying, hey, look, here's the plan, and really wanting to get the community engaged, because that's how we will achieve that outcome of building social capital. And I think that is it. Oh, no, next steps. Yeah, so we're taking it to the community. We've got a lot of fundraising to do. We're doing that. We're starting to recruit, because bringing the right skills here is one of our kind of whole feasibility things, is can we do that? So we're exploring that now. We're getting into sort of the more detailed operational planning, and soon we'll be starting trials and baseline monitoring. You can help, because you're some of the leaders of our community, and so partly on here just to kind of keep you informed, but also we want you going out and speaking positively about it and telling everybody about it. It's not 100% sure that this will go ahead yet, because we've got a big challenge with fundraising, but we've got the prize is just phenomenal. And so we're committed. Thank you very much. Any questions?
There's still deer on spit.
No, there's no deer or goats. There are other predators. There's hedgehogs and hares and mice, and probably a few weasels that we're not sort of going to focus on, because we're trying to just focus on something that's, it's going to be hard enough doing that. But pigs are the only large mammal out there that we're not. Possums, stoats, ferrets, rats. Possums? No, sorry, possums, stoats, rats, pigs. We don't have ferrets out.
Cats.
There is part of the plan to control feral cats, but that's something that we have to do quite carefully and make sure that we know that they're feral cats and not domestic cats. But in particular, some of that little remnant silly shearwater colony is quite at risk from feral cats, and so we do have to do some of that. So do you trap or poison? So yes. Now, so the key kind of issues that are around this that are contentious. First of all, that we asked our consultants, could this be done without toxins? And the answer was no, it can't. There's various stages. And the idea is to get all of the devices in place and get ready to defend. And then there's a knockdown of the population, and that's done with distributing 1080 on the spit. So it's only on the spit. It's not near any waterways. It's not near any private land. There shouldn't be any domestic animals out there. It's a nature reserve. And we only have to do it the once, because then we have everything set up, ready to defend. So we don't have to keep cycling like tends to happen elsewhere in the country. This is the government's sort of way of saying, hey, maybe there's a better way of doing this. If we eradicate, we don't have to keep cyclic suppression. And bait stations. So there'll be a distribution of 1080, and then there'll be Brodifacoum and bait stations just on the spit and on Triangle Lake.
My question is, how do you defend Triangle Lake? That's probably, with the tide going right out, and pests coming from Pakua area. How do you stop that?
Yeah, and it's a big challenge. But these things are happening around the country, and we're starting to build on success. But the tidal flats are, all of the different projects have their Achilles heel. The tidal flats are our particular mission where we actually in there. But the suppression over the, I wonder if you could flick back, is it possible to flick back to the map? The suppression over the Pakua forest and all the private land is about reducing the numbers of pests, numbers that get to the border. So there's a border here, there's going to be a fence along the hilltop wall. And this is about reducing the numbers that get there to make that easier to defend. The fence is also about channeling everything into an intense track network. But even if they do, they've still got, even if they come out onto the tidal flats, and our camera work has shown that yes, they do use the tidal flats, then they still have to come back into shore. And so we've got this sort of intense network of trapping here. So once we eradicate, which we will be able to do, it's about defending, and that's going to require ongoing surveillance, intensive surveillance, and then targeting any incursion that's identified.
So you've been given 3 million. How much more do you need? Is that a sort of question?
Yeah, they so predator-free 2050 target 2-to-1 ratio. So they want the project to come up with 6 million. We've staged the project so that this stage 1 that you see here is we need about 2.85 million. And we will commit to a further stage of rolling that on, of trying to get the funding to roll that on. But as long as we at least are able to complete stage 1, we've achieved something pretty amazing.
And you work with Project Divine? They cover this?
No, well, Project Divine are part of Project Papua, and so we're sort of connected in that we're utilising the same kind of umbrella and the group of people that steer the project. But we are only about this project is sort of confined to being about those 4 predator species, introduced predators.
Tracy, Councillor Hill on Zoom has a question for you.
Chris.
Kia ora, Tracy. Yeah, my question's to do with the use of 1080 on sand. Most of the research, I imagine perhaps all of it, was undertaken in quite different conditions. And I did have a question at the evening meeting about this, I can't remember who, but do we actually know what the different ways that 1080 will respond, I suppose, how the baits will do their thing on sand?
Most of the so the 1080 will be targeted at all of the vegetation areas on the spit, which is where the predators will be hanging out. They do cross the sand, but it's on the vegetation areas that will be mostly targeting. But apart from that, I mean, there will be some on the sand dunes. And I'm not a 1080 expert, but I turn to all of the research, an incredible amount of research that's been done on 1080 that shows that it has very short lifetime in the environment, and that it's, on balance, it doesn't have an environmental cost anywhere near the benefits that it generates.
I understand that. When Dr. Easom, who did some of the key research in New Zealand, came and met with Mana Whenua ki Mohua before 1080 started being used in the bay. So I've had the opportunity to ask any question I needed to around it. So I do understand how it breaks down, and but my question is to do with, do we understand, and do those experts understand, if there's any difference for it being on a sand spit? So the way that it breaks down and it rains and it runs off into little creeks, into bigger creeks, and disperses. It's quite a different environment out there.
Yeah. So all I can say, Chris, is that I will endeavour to find out more about that and bring it back to the community board. I know that there has been a 1080 drop out on the spit previously by Department of Conservation, and it was, my understanding was, it was a kind of a bit of an ad hoc add-on to some other work that they were doing, and so they hadn't done a lot of baseline monitoring around what they achieved with that, but it was quite obvious that the variable oyster catcher and the fern birds, you know, really gained from it.
Yeah, thank you.
I'll find out more about specifically, because I expect it probably has been used in other sand spits, but I'll look that up.
Yeah, that'd be great to know. Great project. Good luck.
Any more questions? Thank you very much, Tracy. I think the board. Do you need anything else from the board apart from our, you know, the support coming here today? What is it you need?
We've already made a quick submission to the. I mean, this is sort of the project is happening at quite a rapid pace now, because Predator Free 2050 actually require us to spend their money in the next 2 years. And so, which means we're sort of really got to hit the ground running. And that decision to kind of go and for that next step will be made in the next few weeks. We've already presented to the annual plan of the council. We don't expect to get a lot from the Tasman District Council. You know, you've got a small rating base. A lot of these big projects in the urban areas are 50% funded by their regional councils, but we're not really expecting that here. You have a couple of really excellent staff who we want to be able to utilise, so that's sort of like a contribution in kind. And we are aware that you have made a bit of an allocation for us in your annual plan for 4 years. So thank you very much for that. But no, really what we want is for you to be excited and to, you know, be positive about it, and that will be reflected in the community.
Good.
And be informed.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks.
Appreciate that. I'm excited anyway. Okay, thank you. So yeah, the next presentation we have Amy Smith, Three Waters Better Off Funding. Amy's on Zoom, so welcome, Amy. Thanks for joining us today.
Kia ora, if you just give me a moment, I'll just try and bring up this presentation.
Sure.
All right, can you see that up on the screen? Looks like you can. Kia ora tātou, ko Amy taku ingoa, ko taku mahi, kai te tari kaupapa I te konehira o te tai o Aorere. Hi, I'm Amy. I'm an advisor in the strategic policy team here at TDC. Thanks for the opportunity to present to you today and tell you about this funding opportunity and what it might mean for the Golden Bay community. I'm also here to seek your input into the process ahead of our discussions with iwi and recommendations back to the council. So today I'll cover a little bit of background about the funding, talk about our strategic opportunity here, a little bit about what council has indicated their focus for using the funding will be, and next steps. So what is the Better Off funding package? This funding package is provided to local government and our communities through the DIA in recognition of the significance of the transfer of responsibility for the water service delivery. It's a $2 billion fund. Tasman's been allocated $22.5 million across 2 tranches. Tranche 1 is open now at $5.64 million for us, and applications closed by the 30th of September. The fund can be used for new initiatives or projects or planned investment or both. The caveat is that these projects have to be delivered within 5 years by the 30th of June 2027. And there'll also be consideration of community support and wellbeing outcomes. So there'll be a few assessments required, setting out the expected benefits of the program that we put forward. It doesn't have to be capital works or require co-funding, and they've indicated that it shouldn't really be used for BAU or Three Waters related projects. So they've also provided 3 broad criteria that the use of the funding must support. So basically any projects have to meet one or more of these 3 criteria. So loosely, it's around building resilience to climate change and natural hazards, or enabling development and growth, or supporting local placemaking and making improvements in community wellbeing. So they're pretty broad criteria. The DIA guidance has indicated that our funding proposal can include multiple initiatives or programs or projects, perhaps grouped by theme, and the timings for those look a bit like this. So existing initiatives, those kind of projects is work that's already been scoped. It might reduce the cost impact on the community, so it sits within the LTP, and there's an opportunity to deliver them earlier. New initiatives, it's a little bit more unclear, I guess, on what that might look like, but it could help us consider our new purpose and the role of councils in a post Three Waters era, stronger focus on placemaking and moving past our current core activities, perhaps to meet more strategic priorities. So the list of planned or new initiatives that could be included in our funding proposal is quite lengthy, and there is a significant opportunity to strategically invest in the future of the district. The conversation we had with councillors was that we need to consider our own context and priorities, as well as the purpose and the priorities of the fund, and pull together a program of work that aligns with that focus. So last month we workshopped this with council to understand what they might want to use the funding for. And we framed the discussion in terms of the environment of our short-term and longer-term context, looking at things like Three Waters moving out of council, current issues around housing affordability and intensification in our district, and the ever-present threat of climate change impacting especially on our coastal communities. As well as that, council also considers its existing strategic priorities and LTP priorities. And we also suggested they might want to think about how the projects could be spread, so the geographic spread across the district, or the fiscal benefit to the communities. They noted that the reserve fund is already building. We talked about whether projects could be internal to TDC or external facing, OPEX versus enduring benefit, intergenerational versus short-term or quick wins. There was discussion around projects that had other possible co-funding sources, so either through the community or waka kotahi, that kind of thing. Whether they wanted to consider a mixture of small or quick wins and larger initiatives, whether we look at tranche 1 by itself or across the whole, so tranche 1 and tranche 2. We emphasised that tranche 2 has to be developed with iwi, together with iwi, and suggested that we can start this engagement now through the tranche 1 process. And we flagged that short-term consultation constraints for any new projects would really put quite a bit of pressure on our timings, where we have to pull together a final application before the 30th of September. So at a fairly high level, we got some direction from council. They want to see the benefits spread across the district and that this is tangible for the community. Some effort towards debt reduction. You'll be aware that in the annual plan consultation, it was signalled that there's quite a bit of work we need to do in 22-23 to meet the minimum requirements of the Water Services Act, which came into effect last year. And that's going to cost approximately 1.25 million. So that indicated through that annual plan process They wanted to explore whether some of this funding could be used to reduce the impact of the increase on water rates. They have indicated that that is a priority for the spending. They also want to explore supporting iwi initiatives, and there was strong support for community facilities and climate change initiatives. Didn't really want to see this used for planning initiatives or walking and cycling projects because there are quite a few existing or upcoming co-funding opportunities there. And they wanted us to explore the potential for investing some of the funding for future use or enduring benefit. So what might this look like for Golden Bay? Once we take some of the tranche one money out to allocate it towards offsetting the Water Services Act and also supporting any iwi initiatives in the district, we could be looking at around 450k in tranche one for Golden Bay and closer to 1.5 million for tranche two. The last LTP was very tight in terms of spending and inspirational ideas. So there's not a lot of projects beyond transport and three waters in there. We have considered some options and we've had a few discussions internally. So these include relocating the recreational berths to the other side of the port at Port Taikako, and maybe some upgrade of the facilities there, supporting redevelopment at the marae. There's been some discussions around a local pump track or a bike park. I understand previously there was some discussions with Fonterra around whether they might free up some of their land for a private bike park. And there's been a new idea around some flood mitigation planning. There wasn't a lot of support around the council table for doing planning kind of work, but we might explore that a little bit more to see what that might look like. So our next steps are we're hosting a hui with EBGMs, NCC, and have extended the invitation to MDC at the end of this month. So we're going to find out what their priorities and where they might like to see some of the money spent. We're hoping that they can support our proposals, and we're open to considering where they might want to see some of the funding spent. We then need to carry out a prioritisation project based on the direction that Council's given us before we go back to them at the start of July with options for the proposals that we can then develop an application from. Council will then decide on that proposal and we'll submit it by the end of September. We haven't yet engaged with Mana Whenua ki Mohua, so I'm open to any thoughts on whether that would be a good idea, but we have directly contacted all the EBGMs. So you know your community, we value your knowledge on what your community might want and how they might want to see this funding spent. We're interested in any projects and initiatives that you're aware of that have community and iwi support. They could be planned, they could sit further out in the LTP, they could just have quite a bit of community support and align with Council's current strategic focus. Yeah, I'm open to any questions and any suggestions, or you can contact me directly. Thanks. Any questions?
April.
What happens if there's a change of government and there's a change of policy? And you're committing to expensive projects and potentially more debt. We have an election next year, and if there's a change of government, they're adamant that three waters won't go ahead.
So that's a great point. So the first tranche, the 5.5 million, is available now. We can access that as soon as our application is accepted. And so that's a guaranteed pool of money. As you say, there could be a change of government. There could be second tranche not available. We've highlighted that that is a risk to Council. They're aware that the change of government could mean the money is not available. So when they're looking at their package of proposals, they're considering what could be delivered within tranche one, or what could set us up perhaps to do something in tranche two if that funding is still available. So the short answer is tranche one is a green light. The second tranche, if there's a change of government, they may or may not have that money available.
questions? So do we deliberate the ideas around the table? Do we put it out to a community? Do we where do we go from here as a board? Because that's the question of what we want to see in the day, I think. It's some advice. We've been given some suggestions. So we need to deliberate this a little bit more later today. I think so. We got that on the agenda.
It's not on the
That would be really helpful. We would love to hear where you see the priorities for the community.
Yes, please. I think that's important. If anyone here has any ideas, to start writing them down. Talk to the community. What priorities they need in the day, and when we need to next meeting. Or do we need to workshop it? Would that be better? The workshop before the next week. Do we need to wait that long?
I think it's quite important to the community. We're handing over assets for quite a lot of money. I think it's something to consider as people improvement.
Not sure. But do we need to workshop what?
Well, through Mr. Chair, the time frame we've got has the full council having a workshop on 5 July. So in order to feed a Golden Bay, context into that, one would suggest that the window of opportunity gets complete up to that.
That's right. So we do need to workshop it actually, rather than putting it on the chair report.
In relatively short term.
Yeah, I would think so. Can we do that next week? Is that a possibility? Great. Same time, same place. That work?
No, not for me, so
Not for you. What's the time for you?
after us or Friday.
After hours or Friday? Okay. Friday? Next Friday? This Friday or next Friday?
Next Friday.
Next Friday? Which is
Yeah, I think it was, we can report on that Friday.
okay. All right. I think that's important. You've got a week or so to put in some ideas and talk to the community. So yeah, thank you, Amy. I think that's been good information.
Thank you. Could I just ask Councillor Hill, did you have something to add?
Nothing to add, but because we've had this presentation over at council, of course, and we've got other workshops coming up around this. But it's great that you're here with the board. Just the idea of it. Were you talking about? Sometimes it's a little hard to hear through the speaker, but are you talking about a workshop on the 24th, not this Friday, but the following?
The 27th is Hui with iwi in Nelson City Council.
Yes, and just with the community board, Grant, were you talking about? I was just aware that Matariki is on Friday the 24th.
Yes, I see that now. Okay, so maybe it needs to be this Friday. Can we do it this Friday?
I'm out, sorry. But I'm only one.
Is there another day that works for you though?
Not this
Or next week?
week. Next week.
Yeah. What day?
Should we do this by?
Let's put it down now. Next week?
Yeah.
What's
Can
good?
you come up to 3?
Anytime after 3:30 on Tuesday.
That would be that.
Work it good. And do we need a bit more council advice with this?
Yeah, feel free to let me know if I can provide any input or supporting material to help your discussions.
Are you available for Zoom? Are you
I
available?
can- Next Tuesday at 3:30.
Yep.
I can be immediately at 3:30. I'm also presenting to the Motueka board from 4 o'clock, but 3:30 I can jump in. Oh, I'll discuss that with Jess and we'll work it out.
Thank you.
Thank
All
you.
right. Thank you very much. Thank you, Amy. Appreciate that. Thank you, everybody, for finding a time. So that's the that brings us to the end of our presentations. And now we move on to the reports. First up, we have the chair's report. But just the questions, what okay? Carry on. We need a break. Okay. Or maybe we'll take a break with Abby. Okay, so can I have somebody to accept the chair's oh, the executive. Okay, yeah, sure. Okay, so first of all, we have the public forum to discuss, and first up we have Noel asking us to consider the funding options that looked at the report on the 19th of May that was presented to full council, and to consider.
Is this something that we could discuss when we discuss the report?
So,
Noel's request that relates directly to the REC report
Yeah.
that Richard's presenting.
yeah, that's actually.
Yeah, so
Yes.
put those points in there.
Okay, that's done. Okay, we'll move that to there. Reg, mobility parking in Collingwood. I know it was talked about.
There's an email from Richard, it was completed. Robert, I contacted Robert and he was following up with the contacted.
Okay.
He hasn't yet got back to me. So he was.
Okay, and I know that the 30 kilometre an hour thing is on the cards for I think it's later this year. But I did see it in a report. I know I saw it in a report somewhere.
I think for Waitaku currently.
Yeah.
It was going to form part of the revamp of the street. And they redid the street.
Hmm?
Strategy.
What strategy?
Oh, there was the upgraded commercial street. but
Upgraded commercial street.
Yeah,
That's quite a wee way away.
it's still a wee way away. It got pushed again, didn't it?
Yeah. Can we look at that? Can we at least put something? The walking and cycling strategy was part of it, wasn't it?
Probably need to go on the next year report if you wanted to make a decision on the recommendation on.
Because we did put a submission to walking and cycling strategy, and it was definitely on there. And so I wonder if we can just find out and then the schedule for, because it might be a little way away yet.
Do you want me to go back to Robert and ask him?
Yeah, I do think we should be in line with the rest of the country. If we bring it forward a little bit earlier, I believe that we need to.
I'll put it into the next year's report.
All right, thank you.
An update. Yeah. I'll check.
All right.
I'll use them to-
Oh, and Collingwood was anyone considered? I think we need to look at that too.
Yeah, I'll ask them that.
Yeah.
first.
Next was Paul Sangster and Taikako Western Arm. He wasn't happy about the fence. Maybe their gate. Maybe there needs to be a larger gate instead of the fence. Maybe there's a few tweaks to make on that.
What was the, what decision did you come up with as far as maintenance in the future?
It's always concerned what is maintenance. The ongoing
That's
cost of
right.
maintenance being borne by the ratepayer.
Mike.
Sorry, Mr. Chair. The ongoing maintenance of the fence would be a council cost. It would be form by the Port Taikako activity, and it would be because of the recreational reserve component in there, it would be funded primarily through the general rate support for Port Taikako. As regards to the mention of the gates, the fences will be constructed with access that allows the appropriate equipment to get through in order to maintain the two arms components.
So it won't be ripped down each time.
No, it wouldn't be ripped down
No.
each time. So that's one of the design considerations, as well as the size of the equipment we typically need to get down to do what is fairly regular maintenance on the arms as a result of storm and other weather damage.
Right, that's pretty clear. Waitaku Bridge, interesting. I think he had some interesting points, and I don't know quite, I couldn't quite visualize the whole thing. Did anyone else pick up on what Paul was saying? Yeah.
The approaches to the bridge are a bit blocked in the wall a little bit upstream. There's supposed to be where the old bridge was. That should be really cleared out. I mean, I sent you guys an email when a while ago about it, and we don't want any obstructions on the approach to the bridge. This goes upstream quite a way. We need that. We don't want big trees here. We don't want walls here. We don't even want rocks here. We want that as clear as it possibly can be. So if anything gets planted there, it really needs to just have to be rushes or something. The whole idea of the bridge is to keep it as open as possible under it and the approaches to it, to let the water out as quickly as possible. And I think what he was saying about Waitaku Splash, they built the road up a little bit there, which what means the seal washes away all the time. So that should be possibly taken. He's suggesting it's taken down a little bit to allow the water through there a bit easier. But I think his main point was the design under the bridge, and it's cluttering it up, and it should be an area that's totally uncluttered.
So the design that was presented, what they had, I mean, surely they would have engineers to look at that and know whether or not that is actually a.
They've come up with a beautiful picture. I think that's all I've done. I don't think they've considered it too. The flooding side of it.
I wonder, Grant, that could be fed back to MP at their meeting.
Sure. Sounds like a good idea.
We
And
don't have a representative on that group,
no,
but we
I
have
am.
the representative with MP.
yeah, I think it's an engineering thing that's been overlooked.
I believe so.
I think that's actually been a very good point. So I will feed that back to them. And outstanding natural landscapes submissions not being recognised or acknowledged for over a year. I'm not sure what's going on there, but I know that Celia meeting today with one of those about one of those outstanding natural landscapes, which is the quarry, dolomite quarry. I think it's taken a lot longer because of COVID. I believe that they had a lot more, that going through bit by bit on all the submissions. So are you, Chris, do you know about the submissions on this? I know Celia's working on it, but she is coming in later maybe.
Through you, Chair, yeah, the project's carried on, of course, and this week through the Bay, the outstanding natural features and landscapes people, which includes a couple of landscape architects, and the person within council that's managing that project is Anna McKenzie, and there's someone else with them over here too. So they've got meetings scheduled in with landowners so there's been a process that's Paul could have probably rung someone at TDC and just asked to speak to the manager of the project and find out what's happening. So it does raise what the purpose of the board. Really, it's a simple service request, I think. So the project's been carrying on, and there were quite a few meetings where people could come along and meet with the team here in the Bay, and they were pretty successful in terms of people being able to sit down and say, look, what does this line mean there on my land, and why is it there? And actually, this is the reasons why I don't think it should be there. It should be somewhere else or something. So we had drop-in sessions that were pretty successful. The site meetings that are happening this week are an extra step in that, where landowners have wanted to meet again, to meet with the whole team. And so yesterday we met with, I went to the port and they met with the Butts whānau, and they were teed up to go to Closses, and today they're meeting with a number of people around sort of behind where I live too. So it's ongoing. It's not, and it wouldn't be difficult to just give a call to somebody to find out what's happening with that project. Seems unusual that people would put submissions in and not get that little email back to say thank you for your submission. So that's what I'd say to that. And Celia and I are going to those, attending those site meetings too, where we're able. We've got a lot of other meetings on through the week, so it's not been easy to get to them all. In terms of Waitaku, I was a bit surprised to see the plan that's been come up with under there, nice paths and trees and pretty gardens and things. It was a nice idea, and I think that was in response to I think they had a community meeting down there, Waka Kotahi and MKM, and community people went along and they heard about what they wanted and things. But it is essentially a flood zone that, man, it rips through there when it gets up and over, doesn't it? So I don't know if there's a naivety to what's been planned, or maybe it just, I'm a bit naive, and maybe they have taken into account that flood water is going to pour through there at times. So, but I wasn't sure that Paul understood that it's a Waka Kotahi piece of land, and it's their project. So again, I guess it's about process, and his submission about that, or wanting to deal with that, would go to Waka Kotahi. I'm not sure it's the board's role to pass on those. There's something, isn't there, about our purpose. Of course, we're supportive of what people are thinking, but if there's, I don't think we're in a role to pass on submissions to other government departments on behalf of people. So he could give them a ring about that, I think. And he seemed to miss that actually the hearings have been and gone in terms of the penguin fence, and his submission there would have been helpful to hear, wouldn't it, during the period of the submission, but that's done and dusted. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. Dave?
I think it's exactly our job to pass on this kind of thing. And so I think we need to pass it on, just in case it gets missed out.
Yep.
And that's what we're here for.
My point is, it's a Waka Kotahi project, and the community are invited to directly engage with them about it. And yes, we can pass it on, but there,
they have us.
People turn up with issues around the DHB or dock or something, and I think there's a way that we can direct people to where the point is, the point of contact for a project.
So I think the board needs to make a submission to that particular project, because they did ask.
No, it closed on the calendar.
Okay. Right.
Well, the work hasn't started, so it's not too late to make a comment, is it?
We should make it a bit of noise.
Yeah.
Well, I will take it back to MKM and put it back to MKM, and hopefully they can talk to Tahu about it.
We have made some writing. That was the view of the thing, so it's important that all site concern.
Well, why not? Send a letter through to MKM about it, for sure. And maybe CC Wakatoni in it.
So because we want them both.
Yep. I guess so. Yeah. Or April, maybe you could submit. Well, I mean, but I don't know the wording, so you might want to word it and send it round to us all. Do that. I'm not sure when the next intake. Yeah, we probably should all have a look at that letter before it goes out, of course. And
What was the other thing?
his and shall we put a service request in for Paul for the to ask about the OS.
Rather than service request, it might just be better to make that staff member. I will relay that to
Thank you.
Well, I think the main thing might have been these people they weren't acknowledged, so they're not sure whether it got in, whether they were whether their submission even got seen by anyone, and also they appear to be worried that since substantial time has passed, that they want a bit of reassurance that their submission hasn't fallen off the table and that it's still going to be looked at. So we want these guys to be responded to with saying, yes, it has been seen and we are still considering it.
How many and who are they? Only Paul, at least. I mean, Paul's speaking for himself.
Can we flick an email to the person in charge of these ONLs over the staff member and ask her to maybe make sure she's acknowledged everyone?
Thank you for the new grant. I was gathering more information from Paul about the actual finer details of what the theory is before we can.
Yes, what is actually
Perhaps
do you
to the right person to discuss that with the department rather than to get through all that we contact with the department rather than as a.
is that right?
Well, he's just using it as an example. We want to make sure that this is an omission that's affected lots and lots of people.
Well, we don't know if that's true.
Yeah, but so we should find out from the person who should have been sending them out. So we'll know exactly.
Can we ask that question in of stuff? Have they been acknowledged?
Sure.
Because we've had feedback that one person doesn't feel they have been.
We didn't say several. I believe
Five, did he?
That's what he knows of.
Yeah.
So there might be a whole lot. There might have been something that's just been slipped through. You still might think they're wasting their time.
I would like to know from Paul first whether he thought of acknowledgement being we've received your submission. Thank you for it, but that's because that's really responsive, then I would like to know what his expectation is. Because
that makes sense.
No.
Yeah.
Well, you always get an acknowledgement.
Well, they can't do a detailed one. They just want acknowledgement they've got it, haven't they? That's what they talk about.
That's what we need to ask.
And also that's still going to be looked at.
Yeah.
Established. Sorry about the deed. Okay.
Yep.
Have they been?
They can be acknowledged, like that even be received, saying, like there's no thank you for your submission, will be in touch. There's nothing, just no response whatsoever.
Yep.
It's the impression I got.
Okay. That's clear. All right, we'll move on. Right, that. Nigel, update. Everything seems to be working a lot more fine out there with Taikako seawall, and that's great. Good to have that acknowledgement. and the planting. And he's asked us for our support. And I would have liked to question a bit what he means by that right now, what support he needs, anything specific.
I think he means that the people residents group would like the community to support them being allowed to rock it. I think that's what he's giving me.
Yeah, I just wanted to know something specific though. I think, you know, you can say that, but we don't know specifically.
No, I'm just saying,
Yeah.
I think that's
Yeah.
what he's meaning.
So maybe we could send an email back to him asking what support he's asking for. I think
Because
that's,
at the moment, they can't, because it's T's and Z's.
I know.
He's sensitive. I think he's asking for us to support.
Mr. Chair, I think the point that he was making was that they have now got their package of response ready to go. And what they're looking from this board is to mitigate against ping pong, effectively, that, you know, things need to go back and forth. So I guess, you know, the big thing is the quality of their response. Because our consenting team has certainly put out what needs to happen. They've now got that information together. And I think his message was just to keep the process on track and moving along so there was an outcome. So I think that's what he's looking for. Of course, you're not in a position to know whether there's a problem yet.
No.
The council hasn't received it.
Sure. And so it'll be blow by blow.
Yeah, I think, you know, our obligation is to keep you informed as to, you know, whether or not that information is sufficient, or if we think there's more information, just to so you're aware of that.
Right. And that's been noted. All right. Right. And that brings us to the end of the public forum. Next, we have the naming of the Moto Cycle Bridge. Item 4 on your agenda. So it's been requested by the Golden Bay Cycle and Walkway that the cycle bridge in Moto be named after the late Grandstand who recently passed away. She was dedicated advocate for walking and cycling access in Golden Bay, driving force behind the establishment of the Taikako Cycleway. So that is the request.
This is not the superintendent and the board. The only respond to the
Yes.
And we will consider it the naming
Yep.
at the next meeting following that.
Right. Yeah,
And
yeah.
there is an item of awareness. No decision to be made.
That's it. Yeah. So we need to be aware that that will come back to us hopefully next meeting. Right, 5 road safety following discussion. Again, it's an awareness, I think. And item 6, Youth Council. And it's once again meetings. Now,
I'll
you
just add
still,
a correction,
yeah,
sorry, I didn't actually, wasn't able to attend that meeting they had on the 6th.
Okay.
But I'm going to catch up with Jess next week.
yes. Who is running the Youth Council?
So that's being run out of the work centre. They help the contract to the youth council, the
Okay.
UDC. So it's Jess and
Brilliant.
thank you. Yes, thank you, Chris.
Who? Yes, and
Jess and
Talia Wilson.
Talia,
okay.
yeah.
All right. Okay.
Thank you, yes. So yes, and at this stage, they're still not going to be sitting at the table. Hopefully we can encourage them to do so.
Yeah, it'd be great. I know Motueka has a youth council representative, and he has quite a lot of input actually. and it'd be nice if we can encourage our youth council to do the same.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
I know that Jason Shirley are very keen, very committed, so
Yeah.
I think it'll do very, very well with them.
and do they have a because are they both at the high school? No, Tully's not, is she?
No,
Tully's
they're Jason's the youth worker for the week centre.
Yeah.
And so it's Shirley are as far as I understand.
So do they also have representation down at the high school?
I would assume so. That's not on the Jason and I will talk about next week.
Yeah, good. So maybe we can, that's what, got 5 minutes maybe.
Oh,
Get right
crikey.
away. Okay. And a prediction from the little of our Aurora, the little blue penguins. At the end, it's just a thank you to the Strategy and Policy Committee for the work that's gone into it.
In the hearing panel.
The hearing panel. Next, Abby, this is your one. Christmas decorations.
Oh, so I actually attended the Village Green AGM on Friday, and we discussed decorating the Village Green for Christmas, and they're all very supportive of that idea, and also have some funding that they may be able to contribute towards it if we take a concrete plan back to them. Cheryl Norder is also contacting a local engineer / artist to see if he could make a Christmas tree out of metal that we can store, similar to the ones in Sundale Square. But I do propose that we do buy those LED lights and put them in the trees and around the village green. Chris, I think you also had a great suggestion about approaching the community trust, and there's one more and it slipped my mind for further funding, so we can have a really nice central focus without having to worry about T&P and street decorations. So yeah, I propose that we purchase the 2 set of the 10-metre cross street decorations, which we talked about at the last meeting, and then use the remainder of the $8,000 from the special project fund for the engineering of the Christmas trees we can put up on the stage.
Right.
Expensive
For
lighting.
discussion.
Very expensive lighting.
Expensive lighting.
Lighting is
Very,
I just
very
can't understand
expensive.
a 10-metre light to cost nearly $3,000. It's just the stars. It's I struggle with it.
They will last a long time and they look amazing, but I do understand it is a lot of money.
and you know, we can build on that. And that's the beauty of it. Village Green can become an amazing place for what we build on. And where do you suggest those lights actually get put across the street?
Oh, no,
By the
so
Village Green?
they would be across the
Used-
street. No, they'd be within the village green, so we
Right.
wouldn't be getting worried about TNP or anything like
Got
that,
it.
and they'd be in the trees.
Yep.
And possibly envisioning my vision, from the balcony that runs along the top of the Mariposa building. I obviously haven't talked to the building owners or anyone like that
It's a
yet. but
security risk, so
Yeah.
but we've got cameras now.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I guess that's something that we need to consider. Can we make that decision now? I guess we can, can't we?
You can, because it's on the chair's report, but I'm also
Yeah.
open to the fact that people want time to consider it the more or offer alternate.
Mind you, we have had the chair's report for at least a week, so.
Plus, it's been on the previous chair's
Yeah.
report.
Exactly. And we need to act now if we're going to do it. And yeah, maybe we also need to look at putting it out to the community, like Gombe Promotions, whether they're interested in sort of helping fund something for that area, and
We
et
could
cetera, et cetera.
certainly approach them as
Yeah.
well.
Who would be leading this whole, you know,
Community
thing of
board,
putting them up and
community board.
community board? So again, it'd be a
An ongoing project that we're
Yeah.
putting onto the next board. For
Yeah.
the future. But,
so an ongoing cost for the board, perhaps.
technically,
would
there
pay-
shouldn't be any cost.
Well, who would pay for the power for the lights?
Well, that's in the next question. Is power on the village green? So we
There
may
is.
need to contribute slightly to the electricity fund. LED lighting should be non-expensive to run, expensive to buy. It should be very low cost electricity wise.
And who would pay for the Christmas tree, the metal Christmas tree?
That would come out of the remainder of the $8,000 after we'd spent the almost $6,000 on lighting. We had $2,000 plus whatever we could get from local sponsors and the village green commission itself.
Right, and it'll probably go down quite well with the community. And then some parts of the community may not like it, but you can't please all of the people. We get damned if we do and damned if we don't. I think the general consensus of the community is to have something. Same with you.
No, I'll abstain from this vote. You know, like I am doing Christmas decorations, Christmas lights.
Right.
That's fine.
So we need to make that as a separate decision to the chair's report passing. I think we probably do.
It should already
Do you
be
have
in, it should already be in the draft resolution. I think. Yeah. It should be when you accept, if you accept the chair's report, it should be. There are 2 lines.
Yeah,
There
there it
we
is.
go.
Agrees to use up to 8,000 of special projects funding to obtain 20 metre LED lights or festive decorations on the village green. Should it also include the Christmas tree, or would we wait for that one?
No, we'll just up to $8,000 of all Christmas decorations. You can check. No, because it's got festive decorations, so that includes the tree.
We just chop down a pine tree.
And hang a skeleton off it.
They're pretty cheap pine trees.
So that's one more item.
Yeah, I know.
Right.
All right. So just the last item on the chair's report is the bird hide at Taikako Point, and well done for the for those involved. I think it's fantastic to have that. Let's hope there's a few more going around the bay. I really hope that we end up with more bird hides in Golden Bay. Well done to those people. So that's it for the chair's report. I'm
Sorry to talk in, Grant. I've just had my hand up.
There's no, you're not on the screen, that's why. Sorry.
Oh, sorry to talk in over you. Just in terms of the Christmas decorations, is there not a can there not be a pub charity application, maybe by the Village Green Group or promotions or someone to pay for? It's quite a lot of money, and I'm thinking that there'd be groups in the community would love $8,000 for, they can do plenty with it, I think. So that's my view on the lights, is that if we can source external funding, I think that's helpful to do that.
So Golden Bay Community Trust.
Yeah, sort of run ourselves at a time a little bit though. I mean, that's the option that the board wishes to go for, then that's absolutely fine, but it won't be in time this Christmas.
Okay, so I'll put the resolution forward that will receive the chair's report, and we agreed to use up to $8,000 of special funds. Special projects funding to obtain the LED light strings for festive decorations on the village green. Do I have a second?
I'm happy to see them.
Is there any discussion around that?
I just
Yeah.
I'm trying not to discuss it.
Oh, no, you can actually discuss it a bit more if you want.
What do you want to make this people just think somewhere else in the community? So fix those potholes in Bain in there.
So all those in favour?
Aye.
declarations on the number 12.
Yeah.
Yep, I'm.
Against? Against? Okay, and
So that's,
it's
that's
three, well, it's 3, 4, and 1 against, and I don't know if Dave's.
I don't want to fire it. I'm not going to go against either. I'm abstaining.
That,
I would call that fallen over.
yeah, that's fine, and we'll look at that.
That is a shame.
It's a shame, but we'll look at that for next summer, next Christmas.
Definitely
Okay.
the funding.
Unless we can write a letter back to the village green and see if they are able to put an application into.
Oh, you can try. Oh, yeah, we'll definitely
Can we,
try.
can we
Yeah,
send that back to them and see if they can do that?
Yep.
Yeah.
See if they want to take ownership.
Okay.
Sure. They can do that.
Yeah, good.
Sorry, Emerald. David stayed.
And I didn't see Chris.
I think
I
Chris
don't
was
know.
against.
Chris was against probably. Yes, she's going to put on the tellers.
To clarify, did you call for a division or just that?
No.
It wasn't.
Oh, sorry, I had my microphone off. Sorry about that.
That's all right.
Yeah, I'm against. Sorry.
It's all right. No, don't apologise. Okay, that's fine.
Next week, could you just tell me where you're up to on the agenda?
We just finished the chair's report, and I'm actually going to call for a break. I think people will probably, and we're going to come back in 15 minutes, and we'll take it up with the next the discretionary funds application after that, and then the reserve financial contributions. So, yeah. Yep, 20 past 11.
Thanks.
Okay. Thank you for coming. Look, couple of things that just came up after we had that vote. I realised that there were 3 of us who voted for it, 2 people who voted against it, and Dave abstained. So therefore, it was actually a passed motion. So I'd just like to point that out. So that motion has passed, and I'd also where is it? And I'd like to resolve the board receives the chair's report. Can I have?
On the screen, yeah.
Yeah. So the Golden Bay Community Board receives the chair's report. Can I have? Oh well, can I ask for a seconder on that? So I just need all in favour of the chair's report. Of receiving the chair's report. Aye. Thank you.
Sorry, so who moved it? And who seconded it?
Well, didn't I move both?
No.
I didn't move both.
No.
Okay, sorry. I thought I had moved both. That was because I read it out.
Okay. Can we confirm who has moved and who has seconded that motion that is on the screen?
I moved it.
Yep.
Okay. And Abby seconded it. The whole motion. And it was passed. The second part was in 2 parts. The second part passed. And I've just asked for confirmation of the first part, and it's also just been passed. Okay. Cool. Yeah, thank you. Right, we have a application for funding. No. From discretionary fund for in the Golden Bay Rec Park Centre for $950. We all read this. I'll take it we have. And is there any questions? April.
Well, it's actually a comment that Eddie's pointed out to me and she couldn't be here. They've already had $500 for the second parade, which they haven't used.
So how much?
500 for the centre parade, which should go ahead, so they've got that, and she felt that it was a lot of money going for smoke. And that was her opinion. My opinion is, I agree with that, but I've also had quite a bit of feedback from the community saying that fireworks at Meteorology are inappropriate culturally. I think quite a bit of feedback from the community, so just want to point that out.
Can you just speak up and Chris be able to hear?
Did you hear that, Chris?
No, I was sort of guessing. Yeah, I could just hear parts of it. Sorry, the speaker's not very good quality, and we're going to get a new one from council somehow. Thank you.
Oh, Abby reminded me that the Rec Centre had $500 for the Santa Parade, which didn't go ahead, which they've still got, and that they also, it's a lot of money to go up and smoke. And I personally had a lot of feedback saying it's not culturally the thing to do with the fireworks at Matariki. So I'm lost on that last question. I don't know, but people tell me that.
Yeah.
You may know more saying it's not the done thing. So that's just someone throwing the open about it.
Could I comment, Chair?
Yes, Chris.
I think there is a feeling about that because it relates, Matariki, part of what it relates to is the relating to the night sky, and fireworks sort of cut across that notion. So it's not like, but I think MCAM were approached locally about this, and Abby will know more about this. I think she'll remember more about it. But I think what was decided was that this is marking something else. So I don't know how it's been advertised. I can't quite remember. But so places that want to celebrate, have a good midwinter fireworks extravaganza, can do that. But I think, some area around the place are sort of saying, around the country are saying that it's not sort of what you do to acknowledge Matariki. It sort of cuts across it in some way, which is not to say these things can't happen, but, people are being encouraged to choose more culturally appropriate things to mark Matariki particularly, and, have fireworks because, it's pretty impressive display last year. And I know there are people who've got animals that don't like it and people who've got kids that love it. So there we go again.
Just a point, Chris, I was at that meeting and they, MKM they said exactly that. It was something else. They didn't want it as Matariki. They were quite clear on that. So that discussion has been had. That's just why it's not at Matariki. It's, what date is it? First or second, isn't it? What did she say? It doesn't give the date. Oh. Okay. No, not at all. Okay. Does anyone know the date? April.
The other thing she's also said was they're charging an entry fee to get into this, so they are making money out of it. So it's not like it's a free football street parade where you just attend and look at it. It's like getting money back from it. It's really like charging to get into it. So surely they should fund the what which means they should fund the fireworks that are there entry fee or whatever.
Have you looked at the whole budget?
I'm just saying what
No, just look at the budget. That's only part of their income budget. Yeah.
Not
Right. Okay.
which is something that they are.
Okay. Thank you. And yeah, they have got that other money from council. Don't know, Dave.
I was going to suggest we give them 500. But what say we don't give them 500 and they get to keep the 500 they've already got?
450, make the 950 up that way.
I'd like to see, all of their income go on fireworks and forget about all the other stuff. But, who am I to know that roughly?
Yeah, they have got a lot of ended up quite a bit of money coming in. They've still got a shortfall. I mean, can we do sort of a guarantee against loss? Is there such a thing as a guarantee against loss sort of thing? If they come to the end of it and say, well, this was our budget, and this is what we lost. We were actually only down $300 in the end. Can you give us and go up to that amount? Is that a possibility? No, probably not.
So that Christmas parade, that just didn't happen, is that why?
That's right.
Can we just say, can we just do that? Can we just say, well, repurpose that 500 to that? And that's the same as I've been got from the other people have asked for. They got 500 from the other people they've asked for money from. So we're just equaling what everyone else been giving them.
Aren't they only allowed to have one a year anyway? That's my question. Are they only allowed to have one a year? And because they've moved this one forward, they've already got it in a way. So you might be right. It might be a technical.
Well, they're not supposed to pay it back if we don't use the money for the intended purpose. So I'm sure they paid that $500 back to us.
They asked us, and we said they can move forward to it. I think that's how it came back. Actually, I think that was one of the meetings. They asked us. So,
Chris has got a hand up.
oh, Chris.
Kia ora, thanks, Dave, through you, Chair. I've got the advert here on Facebook for this event. It's called the Fireworks Extravaganza. There's no mention of Matariki, and it's on Sunday, the 10th of July from 3 till 6:30. I note that the pre-sale is $10 a single ticket, 35 family pass of 4, $15 on the gate, under 5's free. So people are paying to go in. I guess we're subsidising that to some extent. I think they talked about 1,000 people, so we'd be giving $1 a person that would be heading in. I'm inclined to think along Dave's lines that if we said keep the 500 for Santa Parade and gave 500 now towards this, I don't know. I could probably go along with that. Don't want to be miserable. I mean, it's a pretty neat event. If there were 1,000 people there, that's a pretty good percentage of the bay. Not attached. Yeah.
It's always been a controversy around fireworks, though, too, with animals and stuff. Celia.
Yeah, I mean, I noticed that their big expenses are actually the core part of the core activity, which is the fireworks and the traffic management plan and the event management. And so the other things are quite minor, and I would actually support what Dave's saying, and I think that if we should, I agree that we take into consideration the money that they're holding over, because I think we need to do that, because as April says, normally they would have to refund it. So I think we'd be on shaky ground if we said, oh no, you can hold it over, and then we give them the whole of the next grant.
Yeah.
That would be my feeling. So I think that would be pretty much required to take into account that funding that they're going to hold over.
Okay. So, would you like to propose an amount, Dave?
Well, they say they hold over their 500 and we give them 450.
Yep. Okay. I would be happy with that. So, can we? Where's the resolution? That the board receives. The Gombe Rec Park Centre received $450 for the Fireworks Extravaganza, pay for
think we've taken this the request, what the request.
Yeah.
Grant, whereas we've got how much we're going to go.
Right, 450. So we don't need to explain to them why, or do you think
We
should?
will.
We will, okay.
The funding.
Cool.
Yeah.
Yep. So do you propose you? David, you make this resolution, passing this resolution?
Yep.
Try to second it, please. Any more discussion? Councillor Hill, I can't see you. Just
Sorry, I couldn't quite hear about the change to the resolution. Sorry.
$450 is being offered.
Thank you.
Take up to $950.
One moment, Chris.
There you go.
Thank you.
Okay, and so Dave has put that resolution in, and Celia has seconded. All in favour?
Aye.
Yes. Carried. All right. And just said it's great to have the discretionary fund accountability form from Project Divine. Sounds like that, looks like they've done a really good job of managing the. All right, now we're moving on to the reserve financial contributions. This could be interesting. So I'm going to hand you now over to Richard.
Thank you, Chair. Just before we start on, I introduce this report, just point out that this item and the next item are both related to the Reserves Financial Contributions account and expenditure of funds. So, in relation to the Reserve Financial Contributions report, this report is one that I bring to you every year and gives you an update on the status of the Reserve Financial Contributions account, which is a closed account which collects money from development contributions made on development of land, and it's used for specific purposes in relation to development of reserves and community facilities within, in this case, the Golden Bay ward. So the funds are held on a ward basis, and they're generated within the ward and used within the ward. However, we sometimes make contributions from a ward account to wider regional projects as well. So this report, as I say, provides an update on the status of the account. It outlines the certain recommended projects for the next 2 financial years, and it also looks at the special purpose committees budgets as well. So the special purpose committees related to halls and community centres and some reserve committees within the ward, and we look at their requests here and just sign off on those as being appropriate, and they relate to both capital and maintenance requests, and they're funded from a separate fund. I'm happy to either take the report as read or step members through it depending on how you'd like to approach it.
I guess I'm assuming we've all read it too, and we've got some questions. A few questions relating to this.
got a few questions about the grandstand, haven't we, that we're going to answer?
Is that the next one though, or shall we just do both of them at the same time?
Whatever, what do you want?
That's the second one.
So Chair, just in response to that, I've been taken account of in table 4 on page 45 of your agenda. You'll see there I've anticipated the board support for that and included that in the table, so you can see what that looks like with those two projects funded from the reserve financial contributions account.
And that's on, sorry, on what page?
Page 45, I think this is your agenda. Table 4.
Yeah.
Okay, at the bottom. Yeah.
So we'll discuss on, the grandstand, you know?
Well, all of it really.
First question on the grandstand.
Yep, sure.
There's 45,000 contractors accommodation. Do you need to provide accommodation for us for people that get to do with it would be?
Yes, that really is, I guess, something to be picked up under the next one, but I could talk about now. Joe Bywater is also on Zoom as project manager for this, but that was the accommodation contractors. Originally, I think contractors were going to be sourced from within Golden Bay. However, through the procurement process, there was only the Scott Construction was preferred tender, and they were using suppliers within the bay for provision of materials and some subcontractors, but then that provided carpenters, and that was part of the contractual arrangement, was that we provided accommodation for those builders.
Dave.
So to get back to order, we just go from one table after another.
Yep.
Okay, can I Coast Care?
What page?
The first table, page 42. Does that still include push-ups?
Coast Care, so there's capital funding, so that would include, we make some provision for push-ups and also for planting.
We have,
planting.
we have a few times in the past expressed our displeasure, I think, at capital funding being used for a temporary sand push-up, and we asked that you try and find alternative funding for temporary stuff like that.
So the Coast Care funding we have traditionally taken from capital, this capital source, and it covers both planting and the sand.
We realise you've traditionally taken from capital. I think we've said we don't want it taken from capital, it's only a temporary, but 2 minutes.
Well, it's part of an integrated process, so it's more than 2 things, but
3 months. So have you looked at an alternative funding for this, or are you just going to be forgetting what we say and keep putting it on here all the time?
Well, at the moment there is no alternative funding for that work. That's as I say, we have taken it from the source. The amount that we've spent on sand push-ups in the last year is pretty minimal. That's so most of that funding has gone into planting.
Councillor Butler.
Oh, no. I've been in this for 25 years, and I just see what happens to the sand between tides and storms. And I can tell you right now, 2 days ago, we had massive storms that we owned, and the sea came in the whole of the land. 2 days later, the tide pushed it back. Sand is so movable that push up, in my opinion, is a waste of money. And I don't know why people persist in doing it. It's just like, it runs through your fingers. It's just such a temporary thing. It really is pouring money down the drain. And I just don't understand why people still insist on doing it. It's just money to the contractors. That's more what happens to sand and water.
It's still protection that they're doing, so
It's not
someone has to pay it.
It's not
Yeah, I think it depends on where it is. That's the key thing. It depends on how dynamic the coastline is.
Yeah.
And it would be interesting to have just a breakdown on where it's actually been done. I mean, at Parapara, it's actually seems to have been fairly stable. That's been my view of it. You may have another one, but there are other places, that, say, for example, at Taikako, where it's been done and it's just been far too dynamic, you know, with easterlies for it to stay in place. So it seems to be that it has to be done in very specific, suitable locations.
I don't think Taikako was one because the sea comes right in.
Yeah, well, that's what I've said. Taikako was not suitable, but Parapara seems to have been in place for a while. Could I ask you that, Richard, about Parapara?
So yes, it's been very successful there. I think where it works best is where we do a push up and then we plant into it straight away, and then and it's done, and it's really difficult to predict what sort of conditions we're going to have. But Parapara has been a great example where 3 or 4 years ago we had a major erosion problem there. We did a push up, we planted into it, and it's the planting has run through it, and it's continuing now to build a dune. So the planting there traps the sand, and it keeps building. So it builds forward and it builds up, and it's been very successful. The other places that we've used have been or used coast care with planting, not always push-ups, but Patton's Rock, Liger Bay, Taikako, Parapara, and several other locations. So we're doing extensive coast care work each year, continuing to add to that, replenish where material has been lost, and it is working overall.
Maybe just to continue on with my question, would it be possible for it to have a much more restricted program, so that we're not just doing sand push-ups in places where it gets washed away, so we've got a much more nuanced approach to it, that on the light of experience.
Yeah, as I say, we need to do the push-up first to create the environment to plant into, and then beyond that we're just doing maintenance planting in the areas once they become established. And we've done actually very few push-ups in the last couple of years, and the majority of funding has gone into the planting. Right.
Obviously it hasn't worked.
Well, I just find it quite annoying that we said we didn't want the money to go to sand push-ups, but we were prepared for it to go on the rocks, and because it didn't fit the program, it's just been ignored.
Comment on that, Chair, or respond to that. The use of rock is not something we can do on reserve land. The National Coastal Policy Statement doesn't allow for the use of rock.
It does.
In that coast.
It's an interpretation.
Yeah, okay. So we're going a little bit off track here with the with this, and I really want to bring us back to the report. So I know we've got that's always going to be a contentious issue of whether or not it's used for sand push-ups. I don't know a way around that, to be honest. I don't know if we have a way around that other than just to keep doing it, because something has to happen. And whereas a budget, where do we expect to get the money from otherwise?
Well, I
Protection.
always thought our money's supposed to go on capital kind of stuff, permanent stuff. That's why I'm uncomfortable with it going on sand.
Chris.
Thank you, through you, Chair. In terms of the, while we're on the coast care, I remember this conversation last year, and I wouldn't agree with you, Dave, that the board doesn't support it. So I think there was a mixed view on the board. There are areas, I was at the Rural Women's Provincial meeting the other day, and Carolyn McClellan was talking to me about, they've got a place at Patapata, and she was talking about just how successful that push-up program's been there. Like, she's very impressed with it. So it's clear that this method is works in some places and doesn't work in others. You know, Tata Beach has, you know, gets eaten away, and they're pretty, you know, pretty hard at times. And it's not really a push-up, I guess, but the stuff that comes off the Wainui Hill gets put in there periodically to sort of hold this, you know, sea back from eating away further into the reserve and the road. But so, and I think at Pakawao, there's areas there where the sand push-up's been effective further down the line. And one of the reasons, my understanding is one of the reasons it was used in front of the houses that are at risk was to stop the reserve getting eaten away, understanding that it was a temporary measure. You put it in, we're just holding off, waiting for a resolution to the Blimmin rock wall there. So, you know, I think it's more of a complex method than it's good or it's bad, and it might be helpful for us to have a little workshop with someone that makes the decisions around, or you know, what the information is around the decisions around it, you know, feed into it. So we get into a bit of a pattern of giving our opinions about things, and there are actually people who have their careers, the focus of their careers is on issues like this. So it might be helpful to hear from them around, you know, what generates, why they're used and where and when they're not. So in terms of this as a coast care budget, I'm really supportive of coast care and what they do. I think they've, you know, they've had some great wins, but also the tricky things of things getting washed out again. So, you know, option B isn't so good, to do nothing, I think. You know, Liger Bay's had a big chunk eaten out of there, and there was plantings all through there. So I guess in a general sense, I support the coast care work. I think they've done a heck of a lot in the bay over the last however many years. In terms of the halls, I think the funding and the maintenance that happens towards our community halls is really good, and I want to acknowledge that. And I think our halls are, most of them are in pretty good shape, or getting in better shape, and they're critical to they're critical infrastructure in our community. So I appreciate how that's working. I've got a question about the rec park. I just can't quite see where I saw it here, but the rec park fields upgrades, I thought there was a balance of 0 in there. And I understood that the fields upgrades get assessed at a certain time of the year, at the end of the season.
Through you, Chair, with the way these capital funding budgets work, we don't have projects under each of those headings in every year, or budget allocated for them. So you'll see picnic areas and cemeteries, there's nothing, and some of those accounts for playgrounds, sorry, for 23, 24, nothing in picnic areas for 22, 23. So those vary according to the needs that we identify in different areas. In terms of the sports field upgrade, that capital funding in 21, 22 would have been for a particular project, and I just can't recall what it's for now. But there's been nothing identified of a capital nature for, and the only sports field that we look after in the bay is Golden Bay Rec Park. So for that park.
So thank you, Richard. And so in terms of the upgrade, this capital upgrade, that's different to the maintenance upgrade that gets assessed at each sports season?
Yes, so that's sports field renovation. So that occurs our operational funding and our maintenance budgets, and we assess, or the contractor assess that at the end of each sports season, summer and winter, and gives us a recommended program, and then we implement that.
Oh, great. Thank you. That's what I was seeking clarification around. Thank you.
And you had a question?
I just wanted to comment really that obviously rocks, I mean, obviously sand just don't always look at that all because till you see rock the road.
Okay. Thank you. I did have a question about the skate park, like the skate park. Is that the whole playground or just the skate park itself? The budget 20.
Probably this, whether the skate park's the right word, Chair. That was for provision, and we had it in last year for a contribution to the development of the bike park on Frontiera land. And as you'll be aware that Frontiera is still considering the use of that land and haven't given us a decision yet. So we've had that in there. We're proposing just to carry it forward in the eventuality that we get that land allocated to that purpose.
Thank you for that. Anything else?
Can we talk about Grandstand yet?
Well, let's
On the same
let's just
page.
let's just look at this report first. The Grandstand's the second report. 7.4. Okay. So is there anything else on this report? Oh, Mike.
So just to assist the board members, this report does include provision for the car parking and for the additional costs of the grandstand, set out in the table on page 42. So you may want to consider the grandstand report before finalising your resolution on this report.
Okay. So that's thank you for that, Mike. And so without the grandstand, is there any other than the grandstand? I want to ask if there are any more questions about this report before we go on to the grandstand. Okay. So we'll hold that over and you would like any questions about the grandstand report before we go back to the update? That's 7.4. Hey, you had a question.
We sort of made a bit of a rough decision amongst ourselves, what in the last meeting, that we would fund the completion of the grandstand. And that was 195. I think we agreed to that pretty much loosely at the last meeting that we had. And it's quite difficult to comprehend that there's another 300,000 on that. I don't believe I'm still think we should finish that grandstand. I'm very supportive of the 195 to finish the grandstand. But I'm not supportive at all of us paying 300,000 car parking.
Okay. Is there a reason why the car park's on there? Because the car park would have been done in the original plan. I imagine the original plan for the rec park, and the car park would have been part of that. So where has the money gone that was originally for the car park back then?
So the through your chair, the money for there was a carry forward from following the completion of the rec park centre to provide for the car parking and for other code compliance works that in relation to fire protection and a couple of other things, I think. And so that was all consolidated into this overall project budget. So that plus the original amount that council provided for that purpose, which was I think it was no 1 point. So that's gone into the project, and so the way it's being structured here is there's two areas that we need to fund with the completion of works. One is the 195,000. The other is the completion of car park work. Is the outstanding projects that are in process.
So my question then is, does that mean that the 1.2 or 1.5 million that's already already sitting there ready to go for the car park, and we just need to add another 300 to it. Is that what I'm hearing?
No, the total project budget was 1.192 million. It's on page 53, I think, this of the order paper under the first page of that grandstand report. You'll see the budget, total budget there. Yep.
No, the public forum had some comments, or we agreed that we would transfer this stuff to them now, so I don't want that forgotten.
No, I won't forget that.
Chris is good.
Chris.
Thank you, through you, Chair. My view on where the money for the 195 for the grandstand should come from is that it should come from our RFCs, Golden Bay RFCs account, and that's because when the council agreed to fund the cost, which was maybe it was 930 or something, was it to start with? That came out of the district facilities rate. So people in St Arnaud, Wakefield, everywhere are paying for that. The councillors could have target rated Golden Bay for it. And it surprised me a little they didn't. I thought it was generous of them. So we could have had a target rate for the whole shebang. So I think it's good that we know that the whole district's paying for it up to that level. People in Moto have been waiting a long time for their community pool. People in Wakefield have been waiting a long time for their community centre. They're wanting a hub out at Tupperweda. So there's a big call on that district-wide facilities rate. And so I think that given these overruns, which are of course unfortunate, that given that we've got the money in our own account in the Bay, I think it's appropriate that it comes out of it. And that there's a, while we're all paying for that district facilities, it goes some way to Golden Bay community paying something specifically from our own account. The money in that account is for these types of things. That's the purpose of it. And the idea of leaving some in there, I guess, in the future, we will want to spend it on other facilities, but it's there to be used, really. That's the purpose of it. So that's my support for the grandstand amount coming out of our Golden Bay RFC's account. In terms of the car parking, it's so important that it gets finished as soon as possible. The rec centre have been waiting. They haven't had sign off on that building for I don't know how many few years it is now. So the sooner that work gets on, the better. And the money's in there and the RFCs for it. Then why wouldn't we take it from there? Thank you.
Thank you. Dave.
The RFCs are going to get lowered quite substantially. And even though there's no sign of it yet, subdivisions will crash and burn very soon, the next year or so. There's a migration loss, interest rates are going up. So they're going to quieten right down. Do we spend our money now? And put ourselves under real pressure for the stuff we've got to do all the time? Or do we do the sensible thing and leave a bit in the bank, a substantial amount in the bank to get us through 3 or 4 lean years that will come up very soon? And we've got a 3 Waters bribe we could possibly get 300,000 from. I'd like to see the grandstand finished with our 195. I'm very keen for that to go up, but 300,000, let's see if we can find another way to do that. That money will be very valuable soon when the subdivisions stop.
Okay, that's a good point. 300,000 on the. Yeah, well, we can bring that up at the meeting. The workshops. So, what do you want to see? Oh, see there.
I just, I think it's actually going to be difficult for in the short term to find that 300,000. And there is this issue of the rec centre getting its sign off.
And it is feeling like it's being compromised because of the grandstand. And it's very hard to tell. I hear what you're saying about subdivision and developments, but we just don't know what's coming, and I tend to try and be a bit more positive than that. But in terms of actually where that I'll just be interested to hear from Mike as to where that 300,000, I know we did traverse this at council, where else it could come from.
So, through Mr. Chair, just 2 points to assist the committee members. One is on page 59, para 3.30 in the report. The reason we've got this $300,000 shortfall is that funds from the recreation facility budget were transferred to the refurbishment of the grandstand. That didn't remove the requirement for the car parking, allowed the grandstand refurbishment to proceed. Now they've progressed further with that, and they've been able to estimate that car parking, which had to be, in my understanding, Richard, reconfigured somewhat because the grandstand is on an area that would have had car parking on previously, so there were drainage and car parking issues, has given rise to the need to fund $300,000. When the matter was reviewed by council, and there was some spirited debate that I observed there, they thought it was appropriate to take it from the RFCs for Golden Bay. In light of there being no other funding source readily available across the community, has been pointed out to the committee. There are a lot of demands being made on the facilities rate in terms of community expectations across the district. So that was the rationale. Council, in my view, steered away from a targeted rate option to fund either the grandstand or the rec centre, preferring to take advantage of the funds that were available in the RFC rather than impose additional rates, whether it was on Golden Bay or the wider district, particularly given the pressure we're under over rates rises at this time.
So is that a possibility of if we didn't go with this 300,000 out of the RNCs, we might end up with a targeted rate of 300,000 for this? Is that a possibility?
That would be an option that would be available to council to or councillors to consider and resolve.
I think the chair, the 7.1 in the report on talks about the different funding sources that were considered as options for this number of rates.
So
if we did it through the general rate, it would be an increase of 0.03%. That wasn't taken by staff.
The chair, I think the recommendation for the car parking was the district facility make that as previous speakers said that council at the meeting felt that was better taken from the portion to the local community, not making to fund rather than the part of the contribution to the facility for business experience.
So they're asking Golden Bay start funding. So that was Chris, did you?
Oh, yeah, thank you. Through you, Chair. Thank you, Mike, for just reminding us that this is about rate increases or not, partly. And I went to the Taikako housing meeting. We had an invite to that. There was a presentation about how that project's going. They've got 100 houses they're going to build down there. They've got the first 30. They're beginning work on them this week, but or this month. So the money will come back into that account. I know things are tricky around building, but they're underway, and I think there are a couple of other projects too that are going to generate extra money into here. And I just don't understand why we would not use the money that we have in there and saving it for a rainy day and rely on people paying more on their rates for it. Yeah, yeah.
Can we answer most questions before we make a decision on this?
We haven't. Yeah.
Because I won't here to even hear them.
Yeah, that's all right. You have another question, Dave?
I'd still like the Three Waters Drive explored.
Through the chair, one of the criteria that DIA put on it is around looking for, like, while there's a relatively free run, there are 3 criteria, and there's also a preference for funding new things. So I'm imagining, I spend a little bit of time with DIA, I'm imagining the appetite for picking up something that's falls in the category of cost overrun, and that funding is quite limited.
I took note of reading these things when they came up, and they seemed to fit in quite well with the community look at things and facilities. And I thought it fitted in quite well with some of those categories.
But if it's showing the overrun, budget overrun, then that's what
the idea of BAU or existing projects to not really the frame that they've put in place.
The debt reduction was.
That was,
It was written down on one of those things I saw on the screen.
you have a question. You have your hand up. No?
I was just support what Dave's saying.
So it's going to come. Okay. I think we just need to vote on this. This is any more discussion about it. All had you say.
If we answer what Noel asked for, that should be done first. If there's anything left to ask.
I think that is what Noel has asked.
Okay, because I wasn't here for that.
Yeah, no, I think that is.
Question.
I think that was what Noel asked for. He also asked
The
for
district, I mean, the
wider district to
yeah.
pay for it, and not the Gold Bay community. Yeah, that's what he asked for back in the day.
Like the one you did,
Yeah.
pays for it.
So, yeah.
The district's paying nigh on $1 million towards it, and I guess we're suggesting that 195 could come out of our own funds that we have.
He's talking more about the 300,000 for the
I'm happy with 195.
It's just the car park, Chris.
I suggest you write the resolution up.
We could, although
That's
I
quite
think
a standard thing to
I
do.
think the overrun is probably what's causing the problem here, because I don't imagine that the fund that the government are giving us would cover it. It's an overrun. The car park.
It's through no fault of our own that the community has been put in this position, I feel, because the whole thing from start to go has been a bit of a disaster, really. And the community, when the project was taken in the community's hands, we lost our ability to fundraise in the sense that we were eligible for certain grants. The TDCs are going to take the project over, and it's going to be 930,000 basically wham bam. And they took it out of their hands, the trust and the AMP, and dropped their court case. And now here we are, so it was taken out of their hands completely, no participation. And so now we've lost our ability to fund to get charity status for it. It's not even a heritage building now. And here we are coming back to the community, sort of dip into our pockets again. Yeah, that's my summing up of it. We'll probably toss the summing up of it.
Could we then, can we remove the car park for now and see if we can't get some alternative funding and then revisit it? Because obviously the Grandstand's got to get finished first, doesn't it?
Richard, is that a possibility?
Well, I think as people people have talked about before, the issue is around getting the code compliance for the rec centre, and we've had a number of extensions to the certificate of public use for the use of that building, and we really need to draw a line under this and kind of move on, regardless of where it comes from. Source.
Through Mr. Chair, I'd probably add to the comment that Richard's making, is that getting things like insurance cover become increasingly difficult when you don't have a code compliance. So a certificate of public use has been there, it's been there for a number of years, we don't have code compliance. So not getting the car park completed to comply with all the consent requirements would be quite difficult for the council to be in that situation. The other point for Commission, Mr. Chair, is to probably say you should consider the resolutions on the referral report before coming back to the resolution in the RFC's report.
Joe, you've got your hand up. You're on mute. Joe?
There you go. Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Yeah, through the chair, just want to touch on if we were to defer the decision on the car parking. The cost estimate that we've come up with, while it's to be slightly updated, that's based on the current site being there as is, with Scott's leading that work and subcontracting out. So I imagine us leaving it down the track, we will have finished the grandstand and would require us to set up a new site, and it would be more expensive than originally anticipated. So that's all I've got.
Can I just, sorry, Chair, to walk in, but I note that in terms of the referral report for the grandstand, the resolution is about us receiving the report. The council's made a decision on this because of timing, and the resolution is about us supporting the council decision or not. And you could put the resolution and there'll either be support for the decision or there won't be.
Thank you, Councillor Hill. Councillor Butler.
Yeah, I'm happy to move this resolution.
Right. Okay.
This
is the resolution for the grandstand.
Yeah, well, just if we put them all together, 1, 2, 3, and 4. I'm happy to move for the car park as well, number 3, which is on page 55, but page 3 of item 8.5. So I'm willing to move that because I think that this is a pragmatic decision we have to make, and I hear what Dave is saying. But I think that as Joe has pointed out, that we would actually be putting ourselves further back, like we wouldn't be going forward if we didn't actually find this 300,000 in our reserves fund contribution. Then we're just going to be ending up actually spending more to try and do that car park. So from a pragmatic point of view, I'd like to move that we actually do it out of the as set in the resolution from the reserves, Golden Bay Reserves Fund contribution, as well as the grandstand.
Thank you, Councillor Butler. Do I have a seconder? I will second that resolution. Does anyone else like to speak to this?
I feel we're being consulted with, not asked to make a decision on these days. We're getting them, we're supposed to have the say on how this reserve fund money gets spent, and we're basically getting told this is how we're spending it, or else we're going to do it anyhow.
So this is
That's a comment. Not let you know.
Thank you, Dave. April?
Page 51.
The decision's been made, hasn't it, basically, and we're just getting here. We tick the boxes. And that's how this community board runs, to be honest.
I don't. Okay, thank you. Thank you, April. I think we do need to move forward. There's pragmatics, and what Councillor Butler has said, and I'll put it to the vote now. All those in favour of the grandstand, this draft resolution, grandstand, is this the right one?
No, that's not the right one. So that is the resolution, that is the report that went to council.
Ah,
The resolution that we have
sorry.
is
Okay.
different.
What page?
Page 51.
It's
Oh,
on page 51 of
58 on
one.
Villager.
It is
58 of Villager, thank you. That's all.
Could I make a comment?
Yep.
So the resolution that the council that went to the full council meeting, point 4 of that draft resolution, so that we've all got that on our diligent documents.
Made a mistake. Yeah, we made a mistake. I was looking at the council's resolution, but actually we're on page 58 of diligent, which is not.
So can I just clarify, have you moved the resolutions that relate to the reserve financial contributions or the referral report for the grandstand?
I think
it's the referral.
the referral report.
Okay, which speaks about supporting the council decision or not. And just to say that at the council decision, point 4 of the resolution there was that council obtains feedback from the community board and the rec park committee on the council's preferred funding source for the upgrade to the car park and report the feedback back to the next full council meeting. So I'll just bring that to light because of our discussion around not being consulted, not making decisions and things like that. It's on page 62 of diligent, or 55 of the report, I think.
So just to go back a step, I would move that the resolution on page 51, this one of this agenda.
One moment, let me bring it up because the share is there. Chris, can you see that screen?
Yes, I can. Thank you.
Okay, so Councillor Butler has moved it and I've seconded it. Everyone's spoken. Do you have anything else to say?
No.
No? Okay, then I'll put it to the vote. All those in favour? Aye.
Aye.
Against?
No.
3-2 carried.
Close votes today.
Close votes. Okay. Thank you. Now we go back to the RSC report, the resolution. Is there any more issues on, any more comments on the RSC report? How that would tidy down.
I've got, I don't even know what report it is. What's the one on page 43 for?
Yeah, that's right. That's the RSC.
I'm just, this is the Marai.
Yep.
I mean, it's just an example. I find it quite confusing.
Yeah.
That it's not a council asset. I don't see what it's got to do as a council. And like I'd put it under a similar footing to a privately owned thing, maybe a church, something that the public can go and use from time to time, but it's not actually owned or run by the council. And with that kind of thing, would we front up money to help them do maintenance as well? I'm not too sure. It just seems a little bit inconsistent.
Okay.
Thank you, Chair. We do from time to time make grants from the Reserve Financial Contributions for community type assets. And so, for example, in the Moto Award in the current year, we've provided 80,000, sorry, for a bowling green, synthetic bowling green in Motueka, and we also provided, I think it's this year, for a marae facility within the Motueka as well. And this the way this one has originated is that a submission was made to the annual plan in relation to supporting some funding for the development of marae, and that was accepted by the council as part of the consideration deliberations on the submissions to the annual plan funding. Shows as operating funding in here because it's a grant, it's not really an asset, a council owned asset.
So just about any group can actually apply. It doesn't have to be a council asset, the council building.
It's looked at as it's for community. This fund is for recreation community facilities. So there's passed some tests in relation to accessibility to community, available community to meet community needs, recreation community facilities.
So theoretically, a church hall could apply. Councillor Butler.
Church could apply.
Councillor Butler.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like?
It depends on the accessibility of it to the wider community.
Is that not the same on the marae?
Yes, I think the case was made by the iwi concerned for that it was going to be accessible to the community as a community facility, and that was accepted by the council through its deliberations.
Yeah, I mean, I'd just thank you through the chair, make the point that that council doesn't actually work with the churches, but council works with the iwi, and in fact, when the last council was elected, there was an event at the marae, and so council is actually working in partnership with MKM and has not, to my understanding, provided funding for them to actually sustain that marae for those purposes. So I actually don't think it's a huge amount of money given the the engagement with council and the fact that that we do depend, and this community board depends on them for some work. So yeah.
It's not the amount or the fact that it's going to the marae that concerns me or confuses me, I suppose. It's that it doesn't appear to be an asset that's anything to do with us. And it's like it opens up a whole lot of, it's a precedent that opens up a whole lot of other people who could ask for money to it. It just seems so inconsistent with where our money normally goes. But certainly there's not much point discussing it because it's already, council's decided we're going to pay it.
Like, what about the halls that aren't council owned? Could they apply for that too? Could they do it? Like Brimoy halls owned by the residents of Brimoy, and it's not a council asset, and they pay rates and everything?
I guess it depends on what they're applying for, to do in terms of the scope of the works, because the council has its discretionary grant schemes, so we do make grants available for different community recreation purposes through the community development area. So they're generally for smaller amounts, but for capital improvements where they have a wider recreational community facility benefit, then yes, it does come within the scope of these funds, and council does make provision for these sort of things from time to time.
Okay. Does that answer your questions?
Yeah, I think it does.
Okay. Are there any more? Is there anything else on this report that you wish to discuss? Otherwise, we'll put it to the vote.
Could I just check in with about one thing?
Sure.
Thank you, Chair. You know, the upgrade of the furniture in the main street, you know, that sort of the deck out in front of Dangerous and Bay Takeaways, and is that on the program? I've just forgotten where that is, and is there funding in here that relates to that?
Sorry, I totally missed that. I was reading something.
The seats outside the Dangerous.
That's roading. That's roading. I think
It wasn't coming out of this.
no, and the upgrade eventually when they do the streetscaping in 2050. Oh, no, sorry, maybe not. At this point, is where it's going to come from. So you're right. I would like to see that done sooner than later. It'd be good to put some money into that, but there's no point in doing it until they actually do the full street update. Really, otherwise you're going to have a higgledy-piggledy job, and you might have to remove the nice stuff that we've just done. Okay. So yeah, can we, would someone like to move this report? Councillor Butler. And a seconder. I'll second it. Okay, and that's all we need, isn't it? Move in a seconder. All those in favour?
Aye.
Yes. No. Okay, passed. Right, next report. Financial summary. Thank you for that. It's quite a process to get through this. I know we've a few years ago we had a we had to readdress a few things after we'd passed this report, and then went oh whoops. So it's good to I want to nut it out before we in 3 months' time go, what do you mean we passed that? So thank you. Okay, so where are we? What page?
73 on the diligence. 66 on the.
Right, financial report. May receives financial report. I'll pass. What is that? Is there any questions about this report? I'll take it as being read.
I guess I've got a question.
Yep.
Where did we get to with actually asking people who apply for a discretionary fund for more information about their
That's a good question.
yeah.
Budget.
Yeah. The discussion was had and it was decided that because it's low level funding, there was a low level need for the board participation. We didn't need to require a larger information in order for them to make
Right, and the special project is a bit different.
yeah.
Because I mean, that funding application we had today was the perfect budget. It showed it very clearly. That's personally what I'd like to see each time. But if it's only $100 in it, probably not. That's important. But I do get it. Any other questions about the comments? No? Okay. So if someone like to second, what did you second? Dave seconded it. All those in favour? Aye. All right, and the action sheet. Get in there. All right, capital or seawall. Do we need to add what Mr. Lloyd, added today, or?
It carries on over the course of the course of the
Yeah.
I'm sure it's not nature, is it?
Economic.
Yeah.
So we actually have a bit of a sort of lack of continuity or about what we've got on the action sheet and what actually was done. So Dennis Bush King was here at that last meeting, and there was a little bit of lack of clarity as to what was actually going to be done. And with this, actually, this is not actually quite right, that Councillor Butler agreed to contact Tanya Harris and request staff arrange a meeting with Mr. Lloyd. That was actually not decided to be the action, and the action was that the Pakawa Residents Association themselves be in touch with Tanya Harris to arrange a meeting.
All right. Can we amend that?
Yeah. And
Thank you.
I'm not sure, did he come to the meeting today? I wasn't here.
Who's that?
Mr. Lloyd.
Yes, he does.
Yes.
And everything seems to be flowing quite nicely at this point. I'm quite happy at this point. So, I mean, do we even need to keep it on here?
Yes, I
Yeah, we do.
Yeah.
Right.
Today, one would just say that the RFI response is ready to be lodged. Or that's the
Right, Dave, your road occupations, bylaw.
Yeah, there was a flurry of activity when I wrote my chair's report thing, and the flurry of activity died away straight away. Even though they said there's a review of it, they said they're going to get hold of us so early, so we be able to have our input before they write much up. It's sort of disappeared. So do I need to write another chair's report? Like I heard recently that it got the council staff into a bit of action when someone where the formed road goes through their property was going to start charging the council an occupation of that road. I know where all that stuff is. Do I have to start pointing out where all these roads go through people's properties? I know a hell of a lot of sewer assets that go through private land. Do I have to start pointing that stuff out to get some action on this? Do I have to write a chair's report pointing out how it goes the other way a lot? Maybe they'll get some action going on. I don't know, but this is I think it's pretty sucky actually. They said that do a review of the processes just to try and disappear it, I think.
Well, can we ask for whether that?
We did that last month.
I know, and we
it stays on the action sheet.
it stays on the action sheet, but can we ask again?
Yeah. Well, my understanding is that it is in the tray of a staff member. Do you know, Mike, about?
I couldn't comment specifically on the review of the road occupations bylaw, but I think it would be reasonable for us as staff to confirm to the board where that process is and where it is on the work program. So you want to say, this is it, it's on the work program, so when is it likely to be attended to? So there's some certainty around that. I do know that that area, it's mentioned by board member Garland, it's very complex. There's a number of intersecting pieces of legislation over roads when they are on private land, when they're being formed, and the paper road is often in a different place, and also when other council assets or private assets cross private land, and there may not be appropriate easements and the likes in place. And that's a very complex area. We can come back and give you an indication of where it is in the process. If it's in a work program, expecting it is, when that's likely to be addressed, so you can get some clarity.
Thank you. Can we add that?
Yeah.
Ongoing. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I've not heard back. I did ring the update on the MOU. I haven't heard back yet. So I will keep following that through. And
Excuse me.
Yes.
Chair, is that update on MOU, is that in regard to the local government commission, or
Yes.
or because it may be that there is not going to be any traction on that at all. Could this board consider actually just working with council on the MOU and leave out the commission out of the equation, because it seems to me like I don't know that this is going to be.
They specifically asked if, that they would like to have input into the MOU. They specifically asked, and I got hold of the chair of the commissioners, and he said, "Oh no, that's a staff that I wanted to do that." So I got hold of Penny, and she put me on to somebody else who's dealing with it, and they were going to get back to me. Yeah, so it wasn't as inputs.
I'm wondering if should we actually put a date on it and say if we haven't heard back by such and such time that the board should just progress it with council.
Yeah, April, do you have a comment?
Yeah, I think it's quite disappointing. Given how much it was whole thing. And you just sort of put in the back there so much to on the I agree with seeing way. Even though they don't even exist, the way LG see it, chase them up. I think the last person bring itself come to some sort of plan.
So maybe we do talk for the time. Chris, did you have something to say? No.
I surprisingly have nothing to say.
No, that's all right. I think.
So
Okay,
maybe if we
so
set a date.
set a
or,
date.
That's just my idea.
Yeah.
Don't know whether other people agree, but if we said, you know, maybe by the end of the year or sooner than that,
But before the election, let's say before the election, so we've got it tidied up.
All right.
I'd like to do that. So by the end of October.
And if we haven't heard back,
I would say August.
August. That would give you the September meeting to adopt it before the election.
Okay.
Yeah. And
Right.
so if we haven't heard back from
August.
the commission by August, or haven't got something underway by August, then if we revert to actually just having the next community board could work out the MOU with the actually with the council. It's
So I think we've already-
realistically to get the MOU done between the board and council before in this electoral term is pretty unrealistic.
I think council and TDC and community board actually did pretty much agree to it, just waiting for permission. So
Right,
it should be just
okay.
a matter of just ticking a box,
All right.
pretty much. So, you know, I think that we were just waiting for their input.
All right.
If I remember correctly. All right. And road safety. Yep. Robert did get back to us with the giveaway sign. Did you see that, Dave? You were the one who brought that up.
No, I brought it up.
Was it you? See, sorry.
Yeah. So mysteriously, there does mysteriously appear to be a giveaway sign.
Did you have your eyes closed?
But it doesn't, according to the report from Robert D, it's not to do with him. So how the giveaway sign got there, I don't know.
Yeah.
But
Oh, well,
it's there.
we can take that off then.
Yeah.
And special projects fund. Balance, and we should have had a rollover. Oh, finance report. Yep. Good. Okay. And that's it. That's it for the action sheet. And correspondence. No item. Oh, sorry. No one wrote. No nothing. So do we have to confirm the action sheet? And we received that action sheet. Sylvia, Someone second it, Dave, in favour? Right, and correspondence, nothing. Councillor Hill, would you like to close again, Karakia?
Yeah, I can do. Thank you, Chair. Karakia tātou, kia hiki te kōrero, kia wātia, kia mama te manawa o te tangata, kia u ki te ara mō tātou e oro nei, ko rongo ki runga, kia tina hui e tae ki e. Let the discussions be lifted, clear away and ease the hearts of people, keep focus on the path of life, peace is upheld, say yes, bind together, and so it is.
Thank you very much. All right, see you at the workshop on Friday, no, Tuesday, next Tuesday.
It's the,
Tuesday.
Yeah, Tuesday.
That's the date.